Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Texas Podcast Massacre. I'm indeed your host, Hank Rodriguez. Joined with me are our other co-host. We got Jimothy James, almost bought a house. Dean, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Sup. I forgot the sups, but yeah, we're doing good. It's my favorite time of year. It's when the stores start putting out their Halloween decorations. So
True.
That's got me a little excited. From distraction from the rest of life's headaches right now. So
you know what? Let me ask you a question before. I'm gonna ask you a question before.
I mean, the people want to wear a mask, but I'm both.
And that, of course, is Dirty Derek. How you doing, sir?
I am good, man. I am good. Just trying to be socially distant, dirty. So
there we go.
Nobody can see what I'm saying under my face mask.
That is a feat.
Dirty
that is a feat to have.
Yeah. That's right.
Well,
balance the dirty with being hygienic.
Oh, it's true. Very true. But hey, I do have a question. What do you? I mean, it's horror, unhorror related, but what do y'all think Halloween's gonna be like this year? I mean, what do you think people are gonna do?
I don't know, man. It's on a Saturday. It's I think it's daylight savings time on this day. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hopefully it's fun for people. I mean, you're wearing a mask, man. Wear a mask. That's all I'm saying. Bunch of doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Go as doctors.
I mean, the thing is, it's Halloween this year's on Saturday, which I don't care about, but I know a lot of people do. But it's on a Saturday. It's like a full moon. Like, there's all these things that people were stoked about Halloween this year, and then of course, then this whole thing happened. I mean, yeah, it's a bummer because I know a lot of things I love about the season won't be, all the
Spirit Store, man. Spirit Store, not opening up this year.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. But I mean, here's the thing is though, and I had this discussion earlier today. It's always Halloween in my house. So, horror movies, candy. It's the decorations. We
all the important things that make Halloween all day, every day.
I'll still be celebrating. So, but it's sad, especially like I said, especially for the little kids that can't trick or treat if they close that down. And I bet you where I live, anyways, it's hard because it's not very celebrated around here. Like I never get maybe like one or two trick or treaters in my area, so people already don't want to participate. I don't know if it's like a religious thing, but I can see people using that as an excuse to not celebrate. So I mean, it's a bummer, but you still got to squeeze what you can out of the holiday. And like I said, I mean, I'll still enjoy myself, but it is
for anybody listening that really wants some great costume ideas, hamster in a ball, John Travolta, boy in the bubble, or Bubble Boy if you're like a Jake Gyllenhaal man. If you like that, astronaut, always good. Anything that has a mask is probably good too. So
or the aliens from Mars Attacks.
Hey, there you go.
Hey, and my last Halloween question for y'all, yay or nay, do y'all like candy corn?
I love candy corn. The only problem is it hurts my teeth, but I love candy corn.
Derek's not a fan, huh?
I don't dislike candy corn. I think it's moderation.
I used to, as a kid, I swear to God, my mom would buy those big, was it Werther's that put them out? Whatever company that put them out in the 80s. The big bag, almost like a bag the size of a bag of chips, and we'd go through that in a day. Me and my mom.
I fucking love candy corn.
Yeah,
but you know what? There's candy I like at Easter time. I like Peeps. And not a lot of people like. All right, look. I didn't shit on your candy corn. You don't shit on my Peeps. That's all I'm saying.
Derek, okay? I too love Peeps. In fact, they're the cutest.
Peeps.
They're the most adorable food on earth. But
I'm gonna bite your head off.
That's the best part.
Yeah. They do Halloween Peeps now though too.
Well, there you go. We got a new Halloween food.
Yeah.
The worst candy of all was circus peanuts though. Circus peanuts are the grossest.
I can get down with circus peanuts.
See, I always thought the worst candy with when you get what's the one with all the baby? Is it Baby Ruth all the one with the nuts in it? On the outside, or is that Payday? Payday. It's all peanuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that too. I know.
Yeah. The worst candy for me is those not the bottle caps, but the candy that had the
snaps, the buttons.
No, not the buttons. They were the ones that had like a Coke bottle, and it had like the liquid into it.
Oh,
Oh,
I know the
worst.
wax bottle. It's the wax bottle.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you see the wax when you're done. You chew the wax. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
even tried that, to be
Don't.
honest.
It's horrible.
It's
I'd
I mean,
rather
it's
eat
not bad.
beans.
It's not bad. You know, I the candy buttons. You ate like so much paper with that.
I think
Oh,
we have to
Jesus.
do something very special this Halloween for this podcast.
Yeah.
I think I think our listeners deserve a grand, a very special Halloween episode of
Yeah.
Texas Podcast. So we need to work on that because I think I have some ideas that are brewing right now, but I think we
Okay.
should.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll go
And,
back to the table and we'll talk about some a very special episode of.
Special Halloween episode.
Exactly.
And speaking of
We
Halloween
learn about life
and-
lessons.
And speaking of Halloween and scary stuff, I saw the scariest thing today. It was a trailer for the Saved by the Bell reboot, and it was the shits.
I'm so excited. I'm
yeah,
so
exactly.
excited.
And it's like you have AC Slater and Jesse Spano, and that's it.
I
You know
know.
what I mean? Like,
You know, the only thing that I hope for that show is that it has like so obviously Elizabeth Berkley, everybody knows her from like not from Saved by the Bell, but they know her from like Showgirls.
Showgirls, yeah.
And obviously AC Slater looks like he has some work done, but if there's not some type of like sex swing involved in that show, I'm turning it off.
Yeah.
So let's get some adult content going on there.
It's horrible. But speaking of
Yeah.
things that I saw, what did y'all watch this past week, gentlemen?
Ooh.
So much. Derek, do you want to start?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually just read Cort's episode. I got done watching Deep Blue Sea 3. It wasn't as bad as 2, but was not even close to being as good as 1. They like tried to tie it back to the original, but very unsuccessfully to do that. And a lot of people got eaten. It was very much like the first one, except it was like an island that was getting sunk, not just like a research facility. So,
Interesting.
yeah, it was interesting. I watched a bunch of stuff that I hadn't seen before. So I watched Ghost Stories with
nice.
the most recent one,
Yes.
which I hadn't seen. Was super impressed. Martin Freeman's always, he's always awesome anyways. So it was just really a great British horror, like definitely underrated. Like,
Great visuals. The cinematography.
yeah. Oh yeah, super awesome. Yeah, definitely a mind fuck at the end. But it's very cool. What else did I watch that I really liked? I watched Brad Pitt in Cutting Class.
Oh, nice.
I was like living there on like Horror High, Return to Horror High, like Slaughter High, like seen all those. Cutting Class I had not seen. So, and if I did, I hadn't seen it in a while. So, I watched that. Very interesting. Very, it says it's one of Brad Pitt's first roles. That guy does not change, man, at all.
No, for
Like
real.
he just has just the same baby face, like except with a little more gray facial hair. But it was super cheesy, very reminiscent of like the late '80s high school. Not exactly like spectacular in the plot line, but it got the job done. And then to round it off, I watched Tourista with
Okay.
Josh Duhamel. I hadn't seen that before, or if I did, again, like it wasn't super memorable. I may have seen it and like not been paying attention because there were scenes that like seemed vaguely familiar, but wasn't bad. Wasn't bad at all. So, and there was another one that I saw, and I can't let me think of what it was, so it probably wasn't that spectacular if I can remember it. Completely different podcast, but I did watch The Tax Collector.
Tax collector.
The one with Shia LaBeouf.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
one where people got mad because he's like in brown face, but he's not really. He's a white guy.
Yeah.
Hey,
Come on.
I don't think it's a spoiler alert, but is he or is he not the main character of that movie?
Yeah, he's pretty much like one of the main
Okay.
characters.
He's based off of a real dude apparently.
Yeah.
Some like Jewish guy that. Yeah.
I won't give too much of it away. We'll talk about it on the other Gold Commando podcast. But
Would you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. I actually thought it was better than I thought it was going to be.
And he
Good.
makes decent
So
movies. Like his
yeah.
even if they're not great, like they're worth a watch. And I probably
Actually,
rewatched most
what
of his.
my favorite movie with him, like honestly, short of Even Stevens, is the Peanut Butter Falcon,
Oh
um,
yeah.
which was I really liked it. So
I was actually referring to the director, but I actually
oh
Shia LaBeouf isn't. He's kind of a douche dude, and he's actually there's this whole thing. He basically completely ripped off this cartoonist I really admire and passed off the work as his own. And he was because for a while there he was trying to be like an underground cartoonist, and this was after
really?
he was already famous. It was a whole weird thing. But anyways, but he's an interesting. Like I think he's actually a talented guy. Like despite his public persona and stuff, I think he's actually a talented actor. So I'm
Yeah.
always interested. Apparently he's got some big role in the new. Marvel wants to use him in their X-Men launch. So
Oh.
who knows who he's playing? God, I hope it's not Wolverine though, because
Oh,
that I
God.
just don't see. But
You know what? He would make he's lanky and spry enough that he might make a good
Cyclops?
Nightcrawler. I was gonna say Nightcrawler.
A Nightcrawler, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely an interesting actor, and I think
Yeah.
again, people hate him, and I think it's kind of slightly justified because of his public persona that he's kind of just a
Yeah.
douchey, but he's a talented guy, so I'll watch him. But
I'd put him with Pyro.
Oh, hey, we're making a good
Yes.
Pyro. Definitely, probably not an Iceman.
No.
Seems like kind of a too big name of an actor to play. The B level, the B level
mutant.
I don't know.
Brotherhood of Evil Mutants guy. Even though I happen to love Pyro,
Put him as Toad. Make him Toad.
I would buy him Toad.
Put him as Toad. Sabretooth.
We just have because we brought up Toad. Did you guys hear what happened with old Darth Maul? Oh God, now I'm blank. Ray Park.
No.
Did you hear about that whole thing?
No.
Oh man, he posted on his he apparently like on Snapchat or Instagram, he basically posted a video of his wife giving him a blowy. And at first people thought it was him, and then apparently it turned out to be like footage of him cheating on him. But then his like daughter came out and said he's an abusive piece of crap, he's a terrible human being. And anyway, so yeah, he kind of
poor timing.
Yeah.
Very poor timing.
Apparently he's done kind of super shady stuff in the past and like kind of revealed himself to be kind of a scumbag online. So, but yeah, anyways, that was interesting. He brought up Toad. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, you know what? If you're gonna have a little sucky, don't put it online.
Well,
Right.
the thing is, like, it was like revenge porn, which is actually like a crime, and it's like it's
Oh.
all this crazy thing. So who knows? But either way, all these articles refer to him as celebrity Ray Park or whatever. I'm like, is he really for the 10 who know who he is?
He's like the guy that's continually behind the CGI.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean-
well, I know when when Disney kind of teased the idea of, I mean, I think they are doing like a Darth Maul series. I mean, and I think like a lot of fans like kind of like even like put out petitions about putting him back as that role because I mean, granted it was such a short period of time, but he still did a good job, you know.
Well, the thing is, like, but he didn't even act like it was somebody else's voice in that. So that's the thing. He's only had 10 lines, I think, in his entire, and he's starred in some really shitty low budget action films, but he just doesn't, his voice doesn't match his abilities or whatever. But either way, I thought it was interesting. Not really horror related, even though I think he's on that precipice.
Horrible.
There's a little tiny spider right there. But yeah, I thought it was interesting news.
All right. What did you watch this week?
So, like Derek, I watched a ton. I watched a ton of like older stuff I'd seen. I watched a bunch of Hammer horror. I watched Wishmaster, the first Wishmaster, but I fell asleep like 30 minutes in. I fell asleep at like 1 a.m, which for me is like the earliest I've fallen asleep in like 5 years. So that I don't know if that's a commentary on Wishmaster, but I'd seen it before. But I did watch a couple different things. Like Derek and I talked offline. I did watch almost all of the 4 hours of In Search of Darkness.
Oh yeah.
It was really cool. I think there was even 1 or 2 things in there that like movies either I don't know if I saw or There was it was still interesting, even though it's the majority of those movies they talked about, I knew and even knew some of the backstory.
Yeah.
It was still well done, and I liked the way it was presented. And again, it's definitely something I would own, especially for me. It's good. I would put that back on, especially because it's so long, while I'm drawing or writing or something, because it's still fun. I love the visuals and stuff, but I really enjoyed it. I would definitely own it. And I think they did a pretty damn good. I mean, that's why it's 4 hours. Pretty decent comprehensive list of going year by year throughout the 80s. And just mentioning, not just some of the major films, but just even some of the lesser known films of those years. But it was.
I thought they did. Yeah, I thought they did a really great job. Like, even I think a lot of like the people that they interviewed were really like engaging, despite Corey Taylor from Slipknot being there. I saw that. I'm like, yeah, James. But I think a lot of people they interviewed never get tired of looking at Darcy, the male girl.
Yeah.
Joe Bob Bruce is always funny. So I think it was, to your point, like I've watched it a few times. Most of it has just been background noise, and I'll look up for like a few minutes and go back to what I'm doing, but it's long enough, right? Like it's interesting. It's just really it's very cool. Fun fact that I did not know about this, with the woman on there was talking about Terror in the Isles. I had no idea that the show had all the horror movie names in there.
Yeah.
And that was a fun fact. I was like, I had no idea. When I actually pulled out the DVD box cover for Terror in the Isles that I have, sure enough, it was there. So that was very cool.
That was, like I said, there's a lot of really great like tidbits, especially even for somebody who watches a shit ton of horror. Obviously, like it was still engaging, and like I said, there was a few things like, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, that's interesting. Like, so I watched that. I watched the Shudder original or Shudder exclusive, The Host, which is very short. It's like 55 minutes. Mm-hmm. I actually liked it, and I see why it's getting a pretty good reception, especially because it's so short. Like it's like, it keeps moving. There are some eye-rolly aspects to it, and again, it's sort of in the same vein of, I mean, basically, it's very timely. It's basically talking about, these people normally meet up on the weekends, but because of COVID, they're doing their weekly meetup, and this time, like one of the main characters really wants to do a seance, or they talk to the spirit medium, and surprise, shit goes wrong. But I actually thought the majority of the characters were interesting and three-dimensional enough that they really stuck out from each other, which is hard when you're just like a little face on the screen. I thought it was generally pretty creepy. They had some really creepy moments to it. There was a few eye-rolly moments where you're like, really, is this something you would logically do? But I thought it was pretty creepy, and I thought it was pretty good. I would definitely recommend it, especially because it's 55 minutes. I would definitely recommend it to people. Especially if you didn't mind movies like The Den and, Unfriended and all those films, like, this sort of like internet screen, computer screen sort of formatted horror movies. I would definitely recommend it. And I also watched in its entirety, because I didn't get through it the first time. I watched The Haunting of Hill House. And I remember I know a lot of my friends really liked it, and I remember the time just it kind of being kind of a slog to get through, and I didn't really like the characters, but I sat through it and I really enjoyed it. The ending is a little kind of but kind of like really there's some forced aspects to the story that, again, I don't think reasonable, logical people would make those decisions. But I thought the characters did a good job of being unlikable, but in a way that was tolerable. Like, they're really flawed human beings, because that's the point. But I will say this, the bunch of and they're all decent actors, but fucking Timothy Hutton, who plays the older dad, Henry Thomas plays the younger version of the dad. And even though I don't think they're that, there's a big, I think they're pretty close to the same age, which is weird. Yeah. But man, Timothy Hutton is only sparsely. Did you watch it, Derek?
Yeah.
So Timothy. They don't, because the dad doesn't. He provides a lot of details toward the ends, but it's funny. Like towards the very end of the show, Timothy Hutton finally kind of makes an appearance, spoiler alert, at a funeral, and holy shit, when you see, and it's this a really impressive scene, because it's like a 12-minute scene that has no cuts. And, it's all this, and they're really like doing this dramatic acting, but fucking Timothy Hutton is on screen for like 5 minutes. And you're like, oh, that's an Academy Award winning actor. That's right. Like, That's what just you see in fact, there's a guy who plays the groundskeeper on it. Like, he has this whole scene. I'm like, fuck, this guy's great too. But, I, is it perfect? No. And I think, like, the whole thing of the conceit of, like, oh, there's always, you gotta look for the ghosts. There's ghosts in the background. I'm like, that's kind of distracting. Like, when you try to watch it for that reason, because you're not even paying attention. You're just like, is that a ghost in the background? Like, that's a little annoying.
I ended up watching it twice just to go back through and, like, check out the ghost in the background. But then, like, it almost in a way makes it way more drawn out because you're paying attention to the background and not the actual story. I did like it. The ending, I agree with you. Like, it lacked something a little bit to me. Like, it seemed, I don't want to say it's been done before, but, like, to some degree it's been done before. It had this, like, very much like American Horror Story kind of vibe at the end. Reminding me a lot of, like, Murder House. And so for that, but I think, like, visually it was really great.
Yeah.
Mike Flanagan's, I think he has, like, a great eye for that stuff. I do like the Easter eggs and, like, the ghosts in the background. I just don't think it should be, like, I don't think they should have ever told anybody about it.
Yeah.
Because I just think that then you're watching it and you're missing, like, huge pieces of the actual, like,
and
solid acting.
I don't blame that on the, like it's an interesting thing. Like I said, if it wasn't something that was, like, publicized and it was just something the filmmakers had to do, I think it's creepy, especially because when you notice them those few times where you just naturally notice them, like one time when she, like, they're like, you see when she's going down these stairs, you see the face in between the steps, like, it genuinely freak, like, oh, that's unnerving and stuff. But
yeah,
I think I don't blame the filmmakers as much as I blame the hype it got. It's sort of like Blair Witch, like, although the Blair Witch hype was definitely on the filmmakers' end, that was sort of the point. But it's like you build up all this hype about it, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna look for all these hidden ghosts. But it's a weird catch-22. It's a sort of, like, I see I don't blame them for doing it because it's an interesting visual element and sort of helps add to the atmosphere. But then as a viewer, it's like I'm not paying attention to the story.
Right.
But I will say that I left it and I was like, that was, especially, like I said, very, I love gothic horror. I love, really well done haunted house movies, like the original The Haunting and stuff, like, really well done. And I thought this was in that same echelon as far as, like, it really is atmospheric and stuff. And also Carla Gugino, I look at her forever, like, and she's such a great actress, and I don't know why she didn't get more roles, but man, wow. Anyways, but
well
yeah,
said.
I thought it was enjoyable. Like I said, the ending felt a little lackluster for me, but there's some great elements in it, and some really actually really scary moments too. So
yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to season 2, Bly Manor, and to see, like, if they can take it up a notch. Like,
yeah.
I like the idea, like, when they do another season, that it's something entirely different.
Yeah, same.
Versus, like, a repeat, or, like, maybe a little bit of a tie into the original, but not, like, fully. So hopefully, again, like Mike Flanagan's, he's good. So he tells a good story. So I have hope that it'll be a solid season 2.
Yeah, no, I think it's. I mean, originally I think it was supposed. I mean, the first one came out like end of October, I think, right? The first season.
Yeah.
2 years ago. So I think it was supposed to come out at the same time this year, but I haven't heard if it's being delayed or anything like that. But
I haven't heard anything since the first season ended, and then they talked about, like, getting ready for season 2, like they do. So
I mean, it's definitely, we looked it up online, and it is said it's supposed to come out in 2020. So I mean, there's only a few months left to 2020 though.
I think that's one thing. Oh, sorry, didn't interrupt you there. I think that's one thing that Netflix, like, has a tendency to do, is, like, they don't really announce their content drops, like big ones like the Umbrella Academy and, like, some of the other things. They're like, we're doing this, but there are other ones that they drop content like that. I'm still waiting for like the heist movie by I'm trying to think who it is now. Guy did Dawn of the Dead. James Gunn.
No, you're talking about no, stop. Justice League.
Zack Snyder. Yeah. He's doing Road to the Dead with Dave Bautista zombie heist movie, and they've been talking about that forever. but there's no release date. I think that's another example of like they'll just drop that. So like I wouldn't be surprised if Halloween just drops it, but they're gonna want to compete because there's so many like horror-based shows that are coming out now, like Lovecraft Country, and then the Hulu announced like the Clive Barker series.
Yeah, Books of Blood. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, so like there's some. I think there's another one like two that's coming out. It's an anthology. It's like Monstertopia or something like that. Monsterology or something on Hulu. It's an anthology on monsters, and then of course Truth Seekers with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, which looks kind of funny. So I mean a lot of good stuff. So I mean they would be foolish not to drop something like soon, but you never know.
I mean the thing is like because it's streaming, you don't have the same limitations that theaters. But I will say I've been looking forward to, even though I didn't love King of the Monsters. I thought it was meh, but I liked aspects of it. But I've been super excited for Godzilla vs. King Kong because I've heard some pretty fun little spoilers about it and some rumors. But it's gotten pushed back twice already, and then they announced today it probably isn't going to even come out until maybe 2022. So, which is a bummer, man. So, I mean, that's even later than fucking Halloween, like Halloween Kills or whatever. So, yeah. So, but anyways, there's still tons of great content, and I'm not one of those people online complaining because we're gonna see it when we see it. And it's not like there's a shortage of content to watch.
True.
So.
Yeah, no, not at all. Sounds like we watched a lot of good stuff. I did try to watch a movie. Let's talk about movies we hate. Tried to watch a movie on Vudu called Clowntergeist.
Oh my
and
god!
It's like and I couldn't even make it through the first 5 minutes of acting before shutting it off. I was like, I can't do this. Like, it's not one of my most hated movies of all time, but it is. It was exactly what worse than I expected from the title. So, and that's our topic tonight. We can talk about movies we hate and why. So,
yeah,
I don't know if you want to kick it off, or you got some in mind. I have a few that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because this was when I thought would be easy, and then I actually thought, I'm like, there's not a lot of horror movies I legitimately hate. There's a lot of movies I think are bad, or there's definitely a lot of movies I was disappointed in. But the thing, like if it's a bad movie and it looks bad and I watch it, I can't hate it. It's like I saw the cover, I saw I'm saying so it's hard because I think there's a crazy echo going on, or some like scratchy noise. You guys else hear that?
It might be Derek's fan.
Oh. Could be. Is that okay? Is it bothering you? I can shut it off.
I mean, as long as it doesn't. If it doesn't bother the audience, I mean, maybe it's just I'm picking it up because I have headphones. But, and again, if somebody complains, they complain. They'll just blame Tank, since his name is on the podcast. So,
it's true.
But anyways, so I mean, there's been a few. I know I brought this up on the podcast. A movie I genuinely hate is a movie like High Tension, because it's insulting to my intelligence. I think that's one thing I hate more than a bad movie. If a bad movie is bad, if it's low budget, has nobody actors, it's bad. But do I hate it? No. If anything, it's just forgettable. I've seen so many horror movies that I can't remember because they were so forgettable because they were bad movies and they just couldn't hold my interest. But then there's these movies that sort of aim to be something greater or have the pretense that there's something greater. A movie like, I've brought it before, like I said, High Tension, because again, it was this highfalutin movie that everybody was excited about, and then it insulted my intelligence in the first 5 minutes, and I'm like, please tell me this isn't where this movie is going. And then the actual conceit of the movie is dumb and makes no sense and is impossible. But it's just one of those things. It's more of I'll see a movie. I'll tell you a movie I legitimately hated because I had my hopes so up. Was Romero's Bruiser. I don't know if you ever saw Bruiser.
I did.
Out in the mid 90s. I remember being super excited. One, because Romero hadn't made a movie in a long time. And this was like, everybody was saying like this is his return to his fucking Night of the Living Dead roots, and he's going to do this edgy. And I heard the concept, and I was like, oh, that's cool. It actually sounds like this DC Comics character, The Question, and this faceless guy goes around beating dudes up to find out the truth. I was like, oh shit, is this like a unofficial adaptation of The Question, who's a character who was created by Steve Ditko, the guy who co-created Spider-Man, who's a Ayn Rand conspiracy theorist, not himself, but The Question himself is an interesting character, and I was like, oh, well, this could be cool, but it was so fucking boring. Like, I wanted it to be so much better, and the movie drags, and the movie looks bad. The movie looks bad even by mid-90s, which I still don't understand. Like, not that Romero's ever been known for his amazing genius eye, but he's made some good-looking movies before. Creepshow, and like he's capable of making establishing films, but Bruiser just looked like fucking sandpaper. Like, it just, I watched it and I was so bummed. And I watched it and I was like, this is literally, I rented the movie. I got excited. I rented it. I took it home. I think I was living on my own at this point. And I watched it and was like excited to watch it. And I was, got my I had my burrito and I'm like, and I finished the movie. I'm like, and I remember trying to convince myself that I liked it more than I did. I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. Like, and so I immediately rewatched it to maybe I missed something, like kind of rationalize in my head like why I wasn't loving it. And I rewatched it literally back to back, and I finished it and I was like, fuck, I just felt like it feels like a hand job and then you don't get the release. Like, it just doesn't, like, I felt so, I was like, that's what I've been waiting for. And like,
the burrito was the most satisfying part of that experience.
The burrito was. Kuka's Burritos in Redlands, California. You were always the highlight of my week. The bean, rice, and cheese burrito, 5 stars. Anyways, but yeah, so that was a movie I legitimately hated for the longest time because I was so bitter. I was like, it was beyond disappointing. I think I got my hopes up so much that it was going to be this like gritty underground, really like visceral experience. And no, it was a boring ass fucking kind of, I don't even know, like a drama. Like, I don't know. I was really pissed. But so that was a movie I genuinely hated. But again, I think a lot of it was my expectation.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think that sometimes that's where the disappointment is, right? Like, you watch a movie, you're excited about it. Even if you read like the box cover, like it sounds good, you read about it, you get all hyped up for it. And then sometimes movies are just like, they're cerebral for the sake of like being cerebral. One of my movies that I really hated for like the longest time, I'm still not a huge fan of it, is The Cemetery Man.
We talked about that, yeah, which is,
I know a lot of people really like that movie. I know it's kind of got like this cult following. I was really excited for it when it came out. I read about it. Rupert Everett, I like him as an actor. It was a really cool concept, but it was, to me, like, it was just, I think, overly artsy for the sake of like being overly artsy. It was almost like borderline pretentious, like, and so it definitely wasn't what I expected. And I can appreciate if like things are artsy and they make sense or they're the aesthetic, but to me, it was just like, to your point, like, it wasn't insulting my intelligence, but it was just like kind of saying like, well, I'm going to do this because I can do it, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because like it's an indie film. Like, sometimes I get really annoyed with indie films that try to overtly not have mainstream themes in them just to prove that they're like indie films. And this is kind of one that found that bucket. Eventually, as I got older and I watched it a little bit more, I did have a little bit more of an appreciation for it. I think that was kind of anticipation, timing, and my age. Like, when I initially watched it, but for like the longest time, I couldn't stand that movie. But I agree with you. Like, there's not a whole lot of movies that I hate. Like, I truly hate. But there are a lot of ones that I definitely don't like. But there's one or two that like I just have zero tolerance. Another one that I was thinking about this list, and I agree. I thought it would be way easier than initially anticipated, but like for the life of me, could not really think of a ton. The other one is Human Centipede 2. Now I know like Tom Six, like, he's not exactly like an Academy Award winning director or filmmaker, but at the same time too, like there's a point like I actually can defend Human Centipede in a lot of ways, like initially because I thought like the acting was decent, like the concept was weird, but it was done. I think like James, you pointed out, like it was done in a way that like did not objectify women, which was really odd for in that type of movie where you're sewing somebody's mouth to their ass.
Yeah.
Like, I was like very classy, and then you have like this whole other like phase two, which is being meta for the sake of being meta, and also extremely brutal, like sexualized, like it's one movie that I can't like. I very hard time watching all the way through. It just has no place. It almost like borderline makes me hate it just solely for the fact that it's like it's I think pushed for the sake of pushing it like beyond reproach. Like I would say like comparing that to Serbian film, I'd rather watch Serbian film honestly. But I just feel like it's gritty for the sake of being gritty, and just like you're expecting one thing, you get something entirely different. It's just kind of to me, it's trash. So I really have a low tolerance for it.
Yeah, I will say I don't. I mean, yeah, the second one is like the one of like the most like dirty feeling movies. Like everything about it just feels dirty. To the point where it's like very unpleasant. It's very edgelord. Which is funny though because the first one tried to be so edgelord, but I actually found it kind of boring. I remember finishing being like, that's the movie that's not what I because it was almost like it tried to be a real movie and like. But I felt like it kind of dragged, and then when it got into the point, you're like, well, this is just gross and kind of dumb, but like, okay. Where the second one was way more like what I thought the first one was going to be, which is definitely like more of an edgelord. Look how crazy we are, but to a point where I'm like, it was, and that little goofy looking dude who, he's a nice guy. I have friends that have become friends with him. Like he's really apparently a nice guy. The little star, the little weird looking guy, the star of it.
Yeah.
He's like the nicest guy on earth, but he's very creepy. But yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, that's the thing. Like there are a few like I can tell you the one movie, and if somebody says what's the movie you hate, it's always the first one I think about. It's one of the worst movies that has ever been made, and definitely one of the funnest movie experience I've ever had. Though, and I brought it up in this podcast, which is God, now I just blanked. Now I've got Day of the Dead stuck in my head. Oh God, it's the Uwe Boll, based off of the shooting video game, the first person shooter.
Postal.
No. I don't even mind. Postal's bad too, but what?
Two?
Why am I blank? No. It's not Isle. Is it not Isle of the Dead?
I know it. House of the Dead.
Oh,
House of the Dead.
yeah,
House of the Dead,
yeah.
where they literally clip in
Yes, they just really
clip in
yeah.
pieces of the video game into the actual
literally,
movie.
you can see the pixelation of like. Not only could we, and let me say, I hated this movie. I saw it in the theater. Me and my brother and my friend Jesse were dying laughing. We were making fun of the movie like it was a fucking like a midnight showing of The Room or whatever. People in the theater were getting pissed at us, but we couldn't. It was just so fucking dumb. But I've hated Uwe Boll since then. And that's one of his early movies. Like he had done other stuff in Europe, but that was one of his first, American films. So this is pre-Blood Rain and the rest of the bullshit he's made. But it was just so fucking insulting. Like everything about it's so dumb. Strippers doing Matrix style 360 kung fu and just everything. It was everything about it was terrible.
Worst villain in horror movie history.
They do the line. It's quiet in here. A little too quiet. As like a serious thing. Like that's a joke people say. But it was bad. Like I said, badly made. But the thing that I hated about it so much is he tried to put all this fucking style. Like was trying to be like new and cutting edge and edgy, and it was so pathetic. It's a fucking terrible movie. They go to like the biggest rave ever on this island, and there's like 13 people there. Fuck that movie. Fuck Uwe Boll. I don't care. He's a piece of shit. And again, I like bad movies are fine. I can appreciate a bad movie, but this was just insulting. Like you could tell that he was trying to cash in on what was cool and trendy. He didn't give a shit about making a good movie, and it was just insulting. But yeah, it's definitely one of the ones where I'm like, and it's some people will say it's so bad it's good. No, I disagree with that. I think it's so bad it's bad. Like.
No, that's like that's like Return to whoever directed Return of the Living Dead 4 and 5.
Yeah.
That's also in the same vein for me. Like you want to kill a franchise, just create a movie like that. That is like you're just dooming it. Like not only was it made for Sci-Fi Channel, which says everything you need to know, but on top of that, like that was back when they were making even shittier movies.
Yep.
Yeah, it is by far like, especially the second one. Like Rave to the Grave is like, it's stupid.
Is Necropolis the
Necropolis,
is
yeah.
the fifth.
So Necropolis is actually the fourth one, which is funny because continuity wise, Rave from
That's
the
what I'm
Grave
saying.
is the technically the fourth one, and Necropolis is the fifth one. But the way they play them out is like the Rave to the Grave is the fifth one, and Necropolis is the fourth. But yeah, I mean, literally like putting zombies with machine guns, and the uncle is buying trioxin from the Russians or like Ukrainians.
I will say I don't know if I saw Rave the Grave. I did see Necropolis, and I'll put that on my list of most hated movies. It was just ugly and like just terrible. Everything about it was terrible.
I mean, it was like if you took House of the Dead and you mixed it with that BMX Bandits from the 80s, and then added zombies. It was just that's what you get. There's like these whole scenes of like people doing BMX like dirt bike jumps, and then on top then they're storming like together like Goonies style into like the zombie compound to like, and then they literally send their teenage. This is like the worst part. They send their teenage gymnastic friend to go like have sex with the security guard to distract him, and then they come running out like they're in love. Like, oh, it's okay. He doesn't care. He loved me. Like they run like, no, it's something so wrong with that.
The one thing I will say about the horror genre is, it's a genre obviously we love. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this podcast and stuff. And some of my favorite movies ever are horror movies, but it is definitely a genre that appeals to. Like that attracts the least talented people out there to make to sort of add their own voice to the participate in the genre. And there's so many dipshits out there who think they're geniuses and all they're doing is just fucking regurgitating the 10 good movies they actually are fans of. They don't have an original thought in their head, and it's really insulting. I mean, there's just tons of shitty low budget horror, and I've seen all this stuff online about like supporting independent horror, and yeah, absolutely, but at the same time, I'm not going to give it a pass just because it's horror. If it's a shitty movie, it's a shitty movie. And again, there's different levels of stupidity. There's different levels of ineptitude. I always judge a movie by what's the intention. That's why, again, Ed Wood movies were really poorly made. He wasn't a good filmmaker, but you can tell he genuinely loved what he was trying to do. Like there is a love there. There is a care that goes into his films, especially like his sci-fi horror ones that make them watchable, make them fun. Plan 9 from Outer Space is a fun movie. Is it a good movie? No, but it's fun. But there's a lot of shitty, no talented actors who don't have anything to say. They don't put their heart into it. They're just trying to cash in or trying to be cool or edgy, and all that shit's nonsense.
I think that's where you run into like a prime example of this is there's a 1980s film Dolls, which by the way I also watched this week as well. I forgot how much I love that movie. And actually, the owners of the house are supposed to be the villains, and they're the most intriguing. Like I'm rooting for them more than I am the people in the house, which is great. But then there's also like another movie that came out in like 2019 called Dolls. It's like a direct like shitty ripoff, like in a sense of like Killer Dolls. It's just taking an already existing idea and making it worse by adding like shitty filmmaking, acting, and all the above. Like to your point, to cash in, like somebody sees that they think like, oh, I heard about this movie Dolls. They're gonna watch that, and they're gonna almost, in my opinion, like potentially misinterpret that for like this other movie. That I thought was really well done. So I think to your point, just because you can make a movie doesn't mean you should make a movie. And if you want to watch a shitty movie, that's fine. Like a lot of times, like I look at like Thanksgiving, right? Like you do not expect anything great from that movie. It's just a fun, stupid horribly made movie to watch to more laugh at the more than anything. But you know what you're getting into,
Yeah.
like in that situation. Like that is probably a labor of love, like for somebody. But I feel like, all right, like it may not be greatly done, but there's some pretty funny stuff in there.
Well, that's the thing is when you sit down to write Thanksgiving about a killer turkey, you know you're not making fucking, Dial M for Murder. You know you're not making fucking The Exorcist. You're making a dumb movie. But if you have some heart, even if you have low budget and your actors aren't real actors and shit, you can still make a fun, watchable movie. It's more about, like I said, that's why that movie Death Metal Zombies is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, because that dude thought he was making a badass, dope, good movie. And no, you made a trash, uninspired piece of shit with your terrible friends and you. And like, I'm sorry, no, you don't get a pass just because you put death metal zombies in no. And also you had shitty death metal in it, which is an extra big crime. So, anyways,
that alone should get you banned from making.
Another movie. I just realized though too that kind of very much in the same vein of Bruiser, that was a movie I was super excited to see. And was really disappointed by was Thinner, Stephen King's Thinner.
Okay, yeah.
Because at the time I was reading tons of Stephen King when that movie. Also, I think around the same time, mid-90s, I think, early mid-90s. I'd have to look it up to be certain. But at the time I was reading tons of Stephen King again, and I was like, oh, there's a new Stephen King movie, and it's straight to video, whatever. That's cool or whatever. And again, I just was like, it just was boring. I just felt it was super boring, and like even the premise, I'm like, well, okay, like. If you want to talk about a dude that's like losing a ton of weight, in an interesting or kind of upsetting way, you can watch The Machinist, I guess. But Thinner was just a movie I was like excited for, and I was just like, it's a gypsy curse, and the guy, he's a fat attorney, I think, I don't remember. But I was like, this is whack. I was like really bummed and stuff, and like
he's runs over somebody while he's getting a toad, a rare.
That's right.
Ray Park. He's getting a Ray Park.
If I want to watch a gypsy curse movie, I'll watch Drag Me to Hell. But yeah, it was just bad. I remember being very disappointed. And in fact, I think at that point Stephen King had some real misses at that point, which is nice to see him kind of having his resurgence recently with all actually some quality stuff. We won't talk about Dark Tower, but yeah, it was another movie where I was like I hated that movie for the longest time. I mean, that's not worthy of hate. It's just a boring, muddled, lackluster film. It's not it's not the worst thing ever, but I hated it for a long time just because of how disappointed I was. So that's definitely in that conversation for me as well.
Well, I think that was in the phase where they were doing a lot of the Stephen King direct to TV miniseries Tommy Knocker's Langoliers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of in that. I don't want to say it was at the time probably a cash grab for him, but probably.
I'm sure it was. I mean, that
cocaine, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, you got to feed that cocaine habit.
Yayo.
Yayo. That white girl. Anyways, but yeah, the thing is one of my biggest pet peeves about the internet is just how fucking negative everybody is. I belong to all these different things, and I've had to step away from social media, not just even the political stuff, which gets really, it crushes my soul, but even a lot of collectors forums and stuff where just dudes have to complain and bitch about everything, and everything. You get excited for this movie and you see the trailer and you're like, don't look at the fucking comments, don't look at the comments, and then you make the mistake of looking at the comments, just people complaining or this looks like shit and weak, and it's like, dude, there's just. So I try genuinely, even though I'm by nature pretty pessimistic, or I'm very critical. I can talk a lot of shit, but I don't like putting too much negative out in the atmosphere, because again, I think there's enough of that. But especially with horror, horror already gets enough hate as it is, just as a genre.
Well, I think the greatest analogy that I read online, I'm the same way. I'm in a lot of forums, and I really have to I'll scroll through them really quickly, but I can't read a ton of the comments. And so it's funny that one of them was this person was asking for a friend. They were saying, my friend says that if you like mainstream horror, you're not a horror fan. And I say that if you like mainstream horror, over indie horror, you are a horror fan. What do people think? Jesus Christ, that was a fucking Pandora box. Like my response was like, hey, if you like any horror, you're a horror fan, you know, like
Yeah.
fuck it. There's great indie movies, great mainstream movies. Like if you just liked it because you like horror movies, like you're a fan. Like what does it matter where it came from?
There's first off, gatekeeping is the biggest bunch of bullshit, anyways. But especially the whole you're not a real fan if fuck that. And again, I see that show all the time. Like, oh, you know, Hereditary is not a real horror film. Fuck you. You're like you. The biggest thing is like the armchair like quarterbacks, the guys who like, you know, like, oh, I think John Carpenter's overrated. Okay, you make a fucking movie like Halloween. You make a movie like fucking The Fog. You go prove us right or wrong. Go prove that you know better. And unless you do, shut the fuck up. Like it's
like the people get like so heated about like when they talk about like who would win in a fight, Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, and they're both like people make like strong like Jason the pussy, blah blah blah. Like, dude, really? Like this is your access for your argument is like Jason's a pussy. Oh, okay. Like,
first off, I managed a comic book store for a decade. Those kind of conversations, while like I said, if you're a nerd, those kind of conversations are inevitable. But ultimately, they're always the dumbest sand pits to get trapped in. Because again,
it's one thing if you're having a conversation of like ability versus inability, like you have those like, you know, like who could win in a fight, like Doctor Doom or Magneto, like, you know, like that's a funnier conversation. But like people that get like really intensely territorial about it, it's like, dude, why do you fucking care? Like honestly, like, and I think that's why super shitty movies get made is because people like that think they can do it better, and then they release stuff that's terrible.
And also, the answer is Jason. He would definitely.
See, that's what I said. I was like, he's not human.
Yeah, no,
he died. He was resurrected from the dead in Part 6. Like,
yeah, dude. You can't, and he's like, he's strong enough to fucking cut people in half with like a machine. Like, Michael Myers is also pretty unkillable, apparently. But I mean, and then we all
4.
Yeah. But I will say this though, it again, those kind of conversations do sort of stir my inner super nerd, because then I do start. I'll be lying in bed at 4 o'clock in the morning going, yeah, but okay, but if you're talking about Jason from Part 3 versus Mike Myers from, and then, you know, like I'll start to really this kind of even though I'm making fun of it,
like Rob Zombie, Michael Myers versus like ambulance driver Jason.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, Roy. That's the thing. It's like, but everybody knows the person who would kick all their asses is Freddy, because he's he's basically like a dream god. So, although I will say,
those guys that's
well, that's the thing. I mean, I will say, and it gets a lot of hate, but I will always have a giant soft spot for Freddy versus Jason, and I like the outcome. I like how they did it, and I like the outcome, because basically at the end it's like, yeah, like Jason is physically stronger, he's more of like a unstoppable killing machine. Freddy, you know, has been punched in the face by a girl before. Like, not that girls can't punch. That's not it's not a misogynist comment. That came out wrong. Tank, you need to edit that before the
never
comes. But anyways, but even Jason's more unstoppable, but at the end, you know, spoiler alert, you know, you see Freddy's head and he gives the wink, because again, you can't kill Freddy. So I thought it was cool. I like that. But what a weird tangent that got off on. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, Derek, that's why I really like doing this podcast with you too, because I mean, I think obviously like we have a balance, and you know, we like different things, even though we have very similar tastes in all lots of movies. But the ultimate, I feel I like you because you're a very positive. You're like me, where it's like you want to talk about your love of something, not like just tear something apart just to be mean.
No,
like,
I think that's why it's like when we talk about like this topic, which I'm glad we covered it, but
yeah, absolutely.
It's harder because like we don't approach horror movies with much hate. Like, you know, we're not trolling online like looking for like the subtle inconsistencies and plot holes like to tear it apart, like where a lot of other people do. I mean, yeah, there are movies that for a variety of reasons that are great, or that kind of rub us the wrong way, or like, yeah, probably like you'll roll fuck that guy, like I never like a movie that he makes. But like for the most part, it's usually like pretty positive stuff, right? We're just talking about things that we really like, and you know, sometimes those are similar, sometimes those are a little bit different, but yeah, definitely not to put more negativity out there is not what this podcast is about. So
Right on.
I agree. And I appreciate you saying that. It's all about, it's all in fun. We can make fun of things because it's fun, and it's not that we're taking it closely to heart. But yeah, great conversation. Um, if I could add something in here though, and I know it kind of goes against everything we just said, why was the why was the mask in Halloween 4 so fucking hideous?
Oh, dude, it's.
Geez, yeah. There's a million reasons
In
for
fact,
it.
I hate every mask. Dude, there was like 3 movies in a row, and the mask looked like. Yeah, I don't know, man.
And there was one part where it's actually blonde for like one scene, and then it
well,
goes back.
yeah, that was that's a plot point in anyways, that's all.
It's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's there's somebody you think this guy is Michael Myers, but it's just a kid who bought like a Michael Myers mask at a store, but it has blonde hair. It's a whole thing. But I will say this though.
The beginning, part 2, right?
Yes,
No,
yes.
No, I'm talking about 4. There's a part in 4 where it's blonde.
I have to rewatch.
I just saw it like 2 days ago.
My understanding with that, just not to go too far on a tangent, but like the mask would always, they'd always make iterations of the mask, so they would never have the original mask, so they would have to make a copy of the mask, which wasn't like, obviously anybody who knows the original mask is just William Shatner Star Trek mask, like painted white, and
Devil's Reign mask.
Yeah, Devil's Reign. Sorry, I stand corrected, but it's William Shatner.
Shatner.
Yeah, so, but in future iterations, they didn't have that original mask, so they like made iterations of that, and it changed. It's just like in Nightmare on Elm Street, like the series, or even Friday the 13th. Like you change special effects, right? I think that's people pick on Friday the 13th about like how Jason changes, but I actually find it really endearing that he does have a different look every time. Like it's new, right? Like nobody cares about that continuity. Jason's got the hockey mask, right? Like you get that kid Jason.
Jason. So I will go on record as saying one of the things I'm most interested in one of the small minutia of the horror fandom is the different looks of major horror icons, because Jason from movie to movie changes drastically. Sometimes, and his, one movie, his mask is sort of missing the lower part of the side jaw. The next it's like fully deteriorated. The next one it's whole again, but has, like sometimes he's wearing the jumps, like the green shirt.
Or even his look, like without the mask, you take part 3 or part 4, right? And then you get all the way, you get like part 6, which is like maggot face Jason. But then you get to Jason X, which obviously is like future in the timeline. When they take his mask off, he just looks like he's got hair. It's he's not as like decomposed. So to me it's almost fun. I always wonder like what he's gonna look like in the next like iteration of it.
And I like that. Like I said, as a Godzilla fan, Godzilla changes throughout his, he changes continually. And it's cool because then you can sort of, when you see, especially like, again, as a nerd, as a collector, as like, if like I have, there's a shelf over there with all like these Jason action figures. And it's cool because you can like look and see like, oh, I didn't even notice like at that point he had this belt on, and this one he has work gloves on, but then he doesn't have work. Like those kind of things are cool. And like, I actually really like, I have like my favorite Jason looks. I have my favorite Freddy looks. My favorite like makeup and design. So I think that's pretty like a cool part of like the big horror icons is the fact that they do sort of change. Michael Myers, unfortunately,
when it was
most of his looks aren't as cool, but that's why I don't know if you heard in the news, but it came out that apparently John Carpenter hates the mask from the new Halloween, but the director was like, we knew he was going to hate it. But I think it looks cool. I think it looks very similar to the first movie, just a deteriorated look. And I actually really like the new mask.
Yeah, I really like it too. It's old. It's like decrepit. I'm actually pretty excited to see what it looks like in the next 2 versions of it, like Introduction of Fire and.
Well, I'd say if it's not charred or burnt in some way, I don't know how. You gotta explain that to me, especially because fucking cheap latex masks will go up like those things are a fire hazard. So it should be a little melty, have some chars. But anyways,
infused with his skin. That'd be
probably.
But all
We'll see.
right, well, yeah, well, I
Let's find out.
appreciate that answer. I was just watching it the other day, and I was like, that is horrible. And he's like wicked strong in that movie, using like stupid strong.
That's the one where he takes the shotgun
And just fucking
and
jams
just, like,
it.
he doesn't shoot it; he just jams it through that girl. Did the cops do it right?
Oh man.
Cops do it by the book. Sure.
He looks super derpy. That mask he looks like special needs Michael Myers.
Well, all right.
He's lost. He's a little lost from now on. It's okay. You need to take a long nap. What's the one where he's living down by the river? Was it 5? Like, is it 5 that I mean, not joking. Like 5, he's like, he floats away at 4, and then he like lives with the guy down. He lives with Matt Foley down by the river, and then he gets up like a year later. He's like leaves. It's Halloween. I'm ready to go. So yeah, maybe some traumatic brain injuries.
But that being said, a great conversation today with you guys. As always, I'm pretty sure our audience is learning something. Going to look back at some bad movies that y'all recommended. But yeah, if you like today's conversation, feel free to hit that follow button on Spotify, that subscribe button on Apple Podcast, and make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Follow us on social media at TankRodPod. That's at TankRodPod. That's on Twitter and Instagram. You can use the hashtag TPMassacre. But other than that, I want to thank you again for listening. Any last words, guys, before we go?
This one's not for you, you bull.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. To coin a phrase, Uwe Boll, suck a dick.
Bye, guys. See y'all next time.
Peace.
Peace.